and steps ordered by our God. Each episode in his life has been ordained so that he could speak to us tonight. Should he decide to speak on family values, he is well equipped, as he is a father and a husband. Should he decide to speak on education, he is well equipped to do so, as he obtained his bachelor as well as his master's degree. Should he decide to speak on the injustices in the world, and more specifically in the city of Springfield, he is well equipped to do so, as he, like many of us, has faced adversity, been singled out and targeted. Should he decide to speak on the widely told negative but unfortunately true stories of black-on-black crime, racial profiling, street corner pharmacists, rising unemployment among black and minority young people, institutional racism, and vestiges of the same, he's well equipped to do so. Should he decide to speak on taking ownership for one's actions and choices, yes, he's well equipped to do so. Should he talk about the success stories in our communities that so often are not covered by the mainstream media, yes, he's well equipped to do so. Finally, should he decide to speak on the blessings of being a child of the Most High God, he's well equipped to do so. Recalling a conversation between Mordecai and Esther, as told in the New International Version of the Book of Esther, chapter 14 and the 14th verse. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for your people will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows, but you have come to this position for such a time as this. In an effort to bring enlightenment and hope to a generation, to bring deliverance and relief to our communities, Mr. N. Keith Chambers has come to speak to us for such a time as this. My friend.
I know that.
In the spirit of this theme, Fire of Faith, in the spirit of the church, labor, and community, in the spirit of this great city of Springfield, let me open with this thought. Ye are the light of the world, a city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do we light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and give it light unto all that is in the house. First, giving honor to God, who is the head of my life, from which all blessings flow. Let the words of my mouth and meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my Redeemer. Good evening.
Good evening.
I hope everybody here is having a pretty good time, because I know I am. I'm feeling pretty good today. Back home, it's been a beautiful fall day outside, even though it had a little bit of overcast, but you know, when you get an opportunity to come back home and you see so many familiar faces, it just brings some sunshine despite the clouds outside. So it's been a great thing. You know, people come into your life sometimes temporarily, and sometimes they come in permanently. You know, I've been blessed to have a friend like Steve that God blessed me with to be a permanent fixture in my life for the past 40 years. And I thank you, Steve, for those kind of words, brother, and I hope we got another 40 to go. And before I start and get into our conversation today, I need to acknowledge a very special person that's in this audience with me. My mother is here, and I'd like for her to stand. Here and my nieces as well. But one thing we all know is that we have matriarchs in our family. And for those who have parents that are with you, or those that you don't have your parents anymore and you have memories, anytime you get the opportunity to have a blessing to touch, feel, be around, you acknowledge and you recognize that. So, amen. Okay? All right. So, it is an honor and a blessing and a privilege for me to be here on this 20th day of October, the year of our Lord, 2012, in this place, the home of the operating Engineers Local 965 as your keynote speaker for the Faith Coalition for the Common Good second annual fall banquet. Did you believe that when you launched that October 15th in 2009 that you would be at this place, at this time in your short history, relevant and impactful? All I can say is that God is good.
Yeah.
God is good. He is still also very much in control. He's brought me a very long way, and he's brought you a very long way. God is still in control. I truly do have a story to tell, but on this night for this event, we have another topic to cover. So we're not going to talk about me or my story. I will also not be making some sort of stump speech for any particular candidate on the eve of a very important election. That's not what I'm here to do. That's not what I've been invited to do. However, in the spirit of the Faith Coalition and its Civic Engagement Committee, I'm asking you, please exercise your right to vote on Tuesday, November 6th. Please. Now, and if you can, moms, dads, aunts, uncles, grandmas, guardians, please take your children with you to the polls.
Yeah.
What better way to teach and to engage them early in the civic process is to show by example from the people that they respect the most that voting is important in every American's life. I'm also not here to talk about my role as the executive director for the Illinois Human Rights Commission and the great work that we do to address the egregious acts of discrimination and bigotry that occurs daily across our state, across our nation, that keeps thousands of men and women, seniors, and others from employment promotions, housing opportunity. The absence of such divisive behavior, the world would be such a better place to live in. No, I'm not here for that. What I would like to do is to have a conversation with you about leading through difficult times and moving from good to great, a coalition on the move. That's my premise this evening. Now, I must tell you, it took me a minute to zero in on those two focus points, leading through difficult times and moving from good to great. Although I work here throughout the year, I have family here, I'm a native here, I attempt to stay connected, I was not really familiar with your organization. I was not sure of the issues that matter to this particular constituency at this time. So like any good student, particularly those of us who are life learners, I began to do my homework. Let me find out a little bit, I said to myself, about this Faith Coalition, the Common Good, and what they are all about. Clearly, when I lived here, there wasn't the presence of a family organization collectively moving forward in the same direction that commanded the respect and attention of city leaders. And yes, there were plenty of issues that needed to be addressed at the time, but divisions amongst community-based organizations were deep and wide. Silos were clear and present at every particular turn. So I made some phone calls. I searched the internet. I even called Shelley again. I asked Shelley, Shelley, you gotta help me out here. You help me out, give me some information. So Shelley suggested that if I were in town on the 25th of September, that I should come by and observe the coalition in action at its public meeting. Shelley said that if I would be able to attend, it would give me some real-time perspective of who you were and what you do. Now, I want to say publicly, Shelley, thank you. Thank you for allowing me, blessing me with your wisdom and telling me to be here on the 25th, because what I witnessed on the 25th was illuminating. I was enamored by the whole new, fresh fragrance that was in the air from the last time that I lived here some 18 years ago. What I saw truly was a light lit on a candle and a candlestick giving light unto all that was in the house on the 25th. That light was bright. It was bright. What I saw was what my pastor tells me at times and tells us at times. I saw the heart and hands of God at work. I got the perspective that I was looking for, as well as the message that was placed on my heart to speak about today. So let's begin this discussion about the Faith Coalition for the Common Good fire of faith, leading through difficult times and moving from good to great. Now, for the time that we have together, I need to lay out one particular ground rule, one favor, if I may ask. It keeps us connected, and particularly after you've had a good meal and what have you, it will engage you and that sort of thing. So it also warmed my heart. My father, with his profound wisdom, used to tell us daily, pay attention, stay alert. Pay attention, stay alert. It's a simple message given with a simple intent to raise the internal antennas of his children as we moved out from his protective doors of his home and into the fast-paced and sometimes uncertain world that awaited us as we left his home. So paying attention and staying alert if you wanted to come back home would help you navigate through those unclear waters. So, young people, there's a lesson for you in that. There's a lesson. So in honor of my father and to raise the internal antennas of everybody here, when I say pay attention, what I'd like for you to do is to say stay alert. Can you do that?
Amen.
All right, let's practice it. Pay attention. Stay alert. Oh man, that's going to work. That's going to work. All right, that's going to work. All right. So as we move through here, we'll talk a little bit about it and we'll engage in that manner. You see, on the 25th, in that place, the place where I matured as a Christian at the Union Baptist Church, under the tutelage of Reverend Rudolph Shaw, the friendship of Pastor Stephen Ritchie, what I saw was inspiring. It was powerful. People were engaged. People were involved. Jim Dixon was passionate about the issue of the federal physical cliff that looms in the backlight of a presidential race. Latrice Ward and Renee Douglas was resolute about addressing issues of attendance and discipline disparities amongst minority students within our school system. And Leroy Jordan, he hammered away at jobs and the high-speed rail project. And I saw the moxie of a Pam Chandler as she pushed city officials on city jobs and opportunities for communities underrepresented. People were expressing, people were motivated. It was black, it was white, it was young, it was senior status, it was working families. And yes, it was those that may be even a little bit better off, but they were all standing shoulder to shoulder, saying it loud. And as Reverend Jackson used to say, and I'm going to replace the word I and put we are somebody. All right. I saw a system at work that when asked a participant about the coalition, I want you to hear this now, about the coalition, here's what they said. They get results. Yeah. They get results. Pay attention. Stay alert. All right. They get results. That has become the brand, your inescapable reputation moving forward. From a business perspective, a social perspective, any practicum that you can imagine, that's one of the highest compliments that can be paid to you. So I get it. I got it. We are here to build upon that growth, promote effectiveness, leadership through difficult times, and to provide that fuel to the fire that stirs your faith, that will help you, most importantly, stay the course. Stay the course. You know, that phrase is traditionally used in the context of war and battle when generals command his troops that they must stay the course if they are to be victorious in battle. I'm sure that many of you, this coalition, the organizations and what have you, feel like you have been in some battles throughout this past few years. I'm sure that conditions seem almost warlike when attempting to make progress for yourselves, progress for your organizations. I'm sure you know about obstacles and struggle. I'm sure you do. I'm almost certain that you may have heard all the criticisms that may have come your way. Those naysayers out there that have no intention to build you up, more so to tear you down. The Faith Coalition, you heard them, the Faith Coalition, it's a fly-by-night operation. It'll fade with the wind as soon as the storms roll in. You heard them. But let me restate one more time for you. Your brand, they get results. All right. The issue that we face today, the orders of magnitude that we live in, our families, our lives, our communities, are paramount. Fellow brothers and sisters, we are part of a great society. We are. We are part of a great society, and the issues of our time demand that we, you, the Faith Coalition for the Common Good, your 19 affiliate organizations, stay the course. Don't need to change, stay the course. People are in need, communities need a strong voice, neighbors need a hand. As a society, too many people are hurting. We must continue to advocate on behalf of the poor, those less fortunate than yourselves, the disenfranchised. We must continue to fight for fairness and inclusion. We must raise the standard of education, increase the levels of achievement for all of our children in all schools. It is not acceptable for one child not moving along an effective track that will have them college ready or workforce ready when they graduate. Parents and institutions must not be allowed to settle on mediocrity in educating our children. They deserve better. They deserve better. Yes, you need that fire. You need that fire. Yes, they deserve better. Yes, you will need that fire. You will need your faith to help you deal with the obstacles and the criticisms that will continue to come your way. Here's a watershed point. Pay attention. Sir. You see, when you gain a reputation as that, getting results, all right, getting results, all of that criticisms just intensify. It doesn't go away. It just intensifies. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. All right. Heavy is the head that wears the crown, but that's what you're there for. So let's move on. Let's go on to this robust theme that you have of fire of faith. Pastor Mack briefly spoke from the book of Exodus when he referenced the story of the burning bush as he focused in on fire of faith. I got the connection instantaneously. I got it. So I am going to build on that. You see, here is where words create power. Words produce images. Images stir emotions, and emotions motivate people to move. The word fire produces some powerful images. Am I not right? All right. You get hot sometimes just thinking about it. It's important that you feel the fire, no pun intended. You see, in order for you to get the commitment about serving others, you have to feel that fire to serve within you. In order to understand the work to be done, make a note right there, the work. Make a note right there, the work. We'll come back to that in just a minute, but what better tool to use to help you feel something than that of the concept of fire connected to faith? Now let's be clear. We're not speaking in terms of feeling fire in the physical sense. No, we're not talking about that. But feeling it in terms of the emotional sense. That's transformative. Pastor Mack understood why God chose a burning bush as a means to get Moses' attention. He understood that. God needed him to move on a few things that he needed to do. He needed to strike an emotional chord with Moses. And what better way to stir that emotion than to put him in a state of awe, amazement, as he presented a burning bush, and check this out, a burning bush and one that would not be consumed by fire around it. Yeah. Can you imagine what that image looked like? Can you imagine that picture and what it looked like and what Moses must have felt at the time as he's standing on holy ground looking at a bush that's not consumed by fire? You want to tell me that your emotion isn't stirred? All right. Oh, yeah, there's no question about it. Your emotions have got to be stirred. Pay attention. Sir. All right. God needed to stand Moses at attention. Let him know, we got work to do. Not you, we got work to do. Now, here's my additional takeaway from that parable. Remember, I said, make a note of it, and we'll come back to the word work. It's about the work. The work matters. It's the work that sustains you. It's the work, my work. It's Moses' work. It's the Faith Coalition's work. It's the 19 organizations affiliated with his work. It's everybody in here's work. It all connects to this parable, the burning bush. You see, every fire has a fuel source. Every source, physical or emotional. Something that sustains, keeps the fire burning. It's like the Olympic fire on the Olympic torch in London. Natural gas was the source that kept it going. Emotional fires need a sustainable fuel source as well, one that is plentiful, renewable, easily accessible. So let's be clear. God provided the bush as an energy source for the physical fire that flourished. But to sustain the emotional fire for Moses, God validated his power and control right there before his eyes, witnessing the splendor of the burning bush. God's instruction to Moses about the work that generated the emotional fire and the enthusiasm within him that compelled Moses to move. What is your energy source that ignites, rekindles, or sustains your emotional fire within you, within your organization, that compels you to move, that drives you to act? Come on. We don't live under a rock. None of us do. You or somebody you know has been impacted by maybe crime in your neighborhood or in your community. You or somebody you know has been impacted by what I call isms. Sexism, classism, racism, lack thereof of inclusion, exclusion. You or somebody you know has been impacted by homelessness or joblessness or foreclosure. Our children are not college ready when they leave school. Some folks can't get health care because of pre-existing condition. Come on, we all know that we don't live underneath the rock. I need you to remind yourself every day through feel, sight, smell, or whatever that fuels, lights, or rekindles or sustains your emotional fire. Remind yourself what that is. You have to feel the emotional fire that burns within you to be clear about the work that needs to be done. I know the work that I have to do that fuels my fire. See those people right there in this front row? See those people right there? My family, my God, the work that I do at the commission, the unrelenting quest and drive for significance in life, the work that I do in the village of South Holland. My God, I want to make a difference. All right. I want to make a difference. That's my work. That's my work. That's the burning bush for me. It rekindles a fuel source for the long journey. Now, to the second part of that theme that deals with faith. I always enjoy talking about faith because that's a great subject for me. Bedrock to the work we do in the area of social justice and advocacy is faith. The substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things to come, faith. We live in a society virtually devoid of faith. For some, faith is fleeting. It's hard. It's a hard thing for some people to wrap their arms around. Faith. They struggle with the concept of it. I know you don't. I know you don't do. They struggle with the concept of it. Well, I have always been taught, and I know it to be true, growing in one's faith requires believing in God and maintaining a close relationship with Him. Every moment in life is an act of faith. Our faith may be strong or it may hang on by the thinnest of threads, but we need it to go on. We hold on to faith so that there is a reason to wake up, to get out of bed, and to participate in what this thing we call life. Life was very hard for an Admiral Jim Stockdale. Anybody in here ever heard of Admiral Jim Stockdale? Some years ago, he held on to faith convincingly. There's a parable that's called, it's not a parable, but it's called the Stockdale Paradox. Admiral Stockdale was a decorated war veteran in the Vietnam era, a POW. He spent 8 years in what was called the Hanoi Hilton. Tortured some 21 times, experienced death and mayhem throughout the 8 years and watched his fellow comrades die. He was interviewed by someone and they asked him, they said, well, you have to tell me, Admiral, why was it that you were able to survive it and the other ones weren't? Why was it? And he spoke about folks that were in his camp, in his troops that were eternal optimists. Nothing wrong with being an eternal optimist. But here's what he said. He said, the optimist said, I'm going to be out by Christmas. I'm going to be out by Christmas. Christmas came and Christmas went. Second year, Christmas came and Christmas went. Third year, Christmas came and Christmas went. And here's what Admiral Stockdale said. He said, I needed to develop a disciplined thought And what I needed to do was to confront the brutal facts of my reality. So he confronted the brutal facts of his reality that he wouldn't be out by Christmas.
Right.
But here's the key. This is what he said. He never lost faith in the end that he would get out.
All right.
And he did. He never lost faith in the end that he would get out. Without faith, hope, and trust, there's not a promise for the future. And without no promising future, life has no direction, no meaning, no justification. How many of our young people feel hopeless today? Don't trust anyone, feel that they have no future, so they live in just day to day. That's a dangerous position to be in. Unfortunately, our prisons are filled with young men and women who fit this profile. That's what I call insanity, though. We can do better.
Right.
As a great society, we can do better. But you know, like I know, that if you have real faith, it'll light a fire in you that will keep you engaged, keep you motivated, and keep your eye on the prize. Having true faith will help you make sense out of troubling and confusing world that we live in. Faith is liberating. It's liberating. My faith file keeps it real for me. My faith file keeps it real for me. So some of you are asking me, well, what's a faith file? Well, let me tell you what a faith file is. Brother Richie knows what a faith file is. Let me tell you what a faith file is. It's a body of work that highlights those moments in life when nothing else makes sense. Nothing else logical makes sense to try to explain it. Martin Luther King understood it when he said, reason is the enemy of faith.
All right.
I cannot apply faith. I cannot apply logic to when in 1978 I collapsed in the locker room of Southeast High School after a homecoming game where we had won, where I was rushed to St. John's Hospital, and at the hospital the doctor, after performing diagnostics, walked into the room, told me and my family that I was extremely lucky. I had 2 fractured compressed vertebrae in my back and came this close to paralysis. The faith of my mother and father who prayed for a son is an example of the power of faith. That's in my faith file. Right. When after months of struggle to generate a sustainable income from a consulting practice that my wife and I had started, didn't really go off too well at that particular point in time. Bills were mounting, family commitments in, and I had just received my last unemployment check. Unemployment check, and guess what happened? I got a phone call from a very powerful person said, if you're interested in a job, I got one for you.
All right.
Faith.
Yeah.
Faith. John Stroger. Faith. Faith is real to me, and whenever I have one of those moments when I need to reassure myself of how real the substance of things hoped for is and the evidence of things to come for me, I go back and read that faith file.
All right.
It keeps it real for me. It makes that fire reappear instantaneously. I got a bunch of them in there, and some of them I'd be embarrassed to share with you, but I got a bunch of them in there. But I'm not sure, I got to this point, and sometimes when you start talking about faith, you get all fired up. But I had somebody, a friend of mine, used to tell me, it's hard to keep your shirt on when you want to get something off your chest. It really is. That's exhilarating, though. So as we move in this dialogue, we move in this discussion, as we've talked about faith and family, we've talked about the Faith Coalition and its origins, I want to move off into leading through difficult times. Not an easy task, and the fact of the matter is that everybody can't lead. It's just a fact, everybody can't lead. Amen. True leadership only exists if people follow when they have the freedom not to. If people follow you because they have no other choice, that's not really leading. Is this not the relationship that God desires with us? One where you choose to be led by Him as opposed to Him dictating your allegiance. God knows the power of choice and free will. Leading through difficult times requires 2 very important variables, choice and results. So far in this evolution of the Faith Coalition for the Common Good, these 2 standards are being met, and being met well, and being met during one of our most troubling and challenging times in our history. It is a time of discontent, uneasiness, insecurity, and let me warn you, with discontent, uneasiness, and insecurity, here's what people have a tendency to do. They go inward. as a society, we begin to circle the wagons around our individual special interests. Silos sprout up everywhere. Protectionist mindset reappears and fear sets in. When times get tough, that's human nature sometimes, what we do. But we all know the destructive nature of what fear can do. Fear paralyzes. And we know that paralysis halts all movement. So let us not fall victim to the scourge and ugliness of greed and selfishness in times of such great need. Let us continue to reach down and pull up someone less fortunate than ourselves in the midst of fatigue. Yes, we all feel it. We're all a little bit tired. I know. We just feel a little bit tired. But despite being tired, let us continue to turn to our good nature and do for others as they would have us do for you. Ralph Waldo Emerson, a famous poet and writer, once said, "What lies behind us and what lies before us are really tiny matters compared to what lies within us." Right. But here's what I know that lies within us. Courage. Courage. That's a word you don't hear very much anymore. Courage, particularly in this context. Courage needs to be present in many forms when leading through difficult times. Today's issues demand old-fashioned individual courage, old-fashioned collective courage, old-fashioned compassionate courage. The Faith Coalition for the Common Good, despite a downward pull of uncertainty, fear, and anxiety, has been able to reach upward and draw inward and march forward toward a worthwhile goal, a better quality of life for everybody, for all. That's the definition of courage. Folks, I've had the privilege of interacting with some dynamic people. I've played golf with a Hall of Famer. I've broke bread with a homeless senior on Michigan Avenue. I've even played basketball with the President of the United States right here in the YMCA. All right? And what I've learned with all these different sectors of people is that the indomitable spirit of the human being, armed with faith and armed with courage, can overcome and conquer the worst of adversity with the greatest of results. With the greatest of results. Courage and faith. Pay attention. That's right, just checking. As stated within the book of Joshua, be strong and be of good courage. So we move into the sector where we're speaking about, and I want to speak about moving from good to great, built to last. Anybody in here read the book by Jim Collins? Good to Great, Built to Last? Very good. He did a qualitative study on companies that moved from being good to great companies. What he sought to find out was what were the common characteristics amongst those companies that moved from good to great, and also that weathered the test of time. The IBMs, the Southwest Airlines, the McDonald's of the world. Great books and must read if you haven't read them. What I found compelling about the data was for those companies in the social sector institutions that moved from good to great, each worked within a framework that displayed what he termed a relentless culture of discipline. A relentless culture of discipline. That means by working with disciplined people who engaged in disciplined thought, like Admiral Stockdale, who took disciplined action that produced great results. These organizations maintained, here's that word again, unwavering faith that they can win and will prevail in the end, regardless of the difficulties and challenges that you face. I see it. I see similar characteristics within this organization. I see it in my short time. I see it. You are delivering superior performance, making distinctive impact, and moving forward, achieving lasting endurance. You're making a difference. Stay the course. Ladies and gentlemen, in closing, let me leave you with these few thoughts. The most satisfying work that anybody can do is helping others. The worst thing that anybody can be without is hope. The greatest asset that anybody can give you or have is faith. And the most contagious spirit that you can the most contagious spirit you can have is enthusiasm. Keep fighting the good fight for jobs through your rail community benefit agreement, the good fight for education through your in schools and on-time initiative, the good fight for neighborhood revitalization and your beloved community push. So, as I open, I want to close from the book of Matthew. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which are in heaven. God bless you and thank you.